All right, welcome to this training, the three stages to growth, healing, and transformation. Now, whether this be in your relationship, your romantic relationship, or be relationship with your kids, or relationship with your business, or relationship with your body, your emotions, your health, your hobbies, your finances, your spiritual health, life, family, you name it. We all go through these same three stages to growing, healing, and transforming, ultimately transforming, right? And which means to change form, right? So I'm going to talk you through the three stages, and then I'm going to go into depth as to how we transform on the deepest level, right? So let me go through the stages first. The first stage is always is resistance. What that means is that even as you are accepting a challenge right now, there are other forms of resistance that are going on for you right now, like that you're not even aware of. There is a resistance to some sort of change that hasn't happened yet. The reason it hasn't happened yet is because you're not even aware of the resistance, right? And that could be, again, it could be in your relationship, and it'll sound like, or it'll even look like you'll imagine, oh, I wish like you're imagining, I wish I was having this kind of experience I've never had before. I've been in this beautiful place, or yeah, I'd be able to do these things and have that. And the reason that you don't have it is because there's some form of resistance to it. And you might think, no, that's not true because you're like, I just want that. Like, that'd be exciting. But there is actually resistance there. All right. And the excitement of it can actually be blocking and a result of avoiding the fear. And that's why step number two is finding the fear. Because understand that a lot of pleasure seeking is a result of avoiding fear. Like if I keep seeking pleasure, I won't notice the fear that I'm feeling, right? So fear is an emotion and a feeling is a sensation in the body. They're two different things. But the fear brings to our attention, like we have an idea of fear. We might have a logical idea of fear, like a rational idea of a fear, like a belief, a fear belief, right? So step two is finding the fear. Now, I want to give you some practical examples of how you can do this because we might think, oh, I'm afraid to go and take this action in business. But I want to give you an example through three dreams that I've had in the last three nights in a row that can help you understand that we can constantly be finding on a daily basis through no interaction with another person or thing more of this resistance in order for us to grow, heal, and transform. Okay, so we can actually do this through the our physicality, our mindset, our thoughts, physicality also involving our behavior. So some behavior that we notice, and also some behavior that we notice, and then the meaning that we give to that behavior, which is not factual. That gives us insights into where the resistance is and the fear. And then the emotions we're aware of that we're experiencing, and then the feelings and sensations in our body, which give us insights into our unconsciousness. And our goal is to get to consciousness. More consciousness is true. Full consciousness is self-actualization. And that's why I have these arrows here, because the arrows that are all within this circle, they are not as effective as getting to unconscious thoughts, behaviors, feelings, which is where the resistance is. And then consciousness is everything. So to get to consciousness resolves all unconsciousness, feelings, emotions, mindset, physicality. And you can only just know the only way to true growth, healing, and transformation is through pain, some form of pain, a new stimulus that you have not experienced. That new stimulus can be physical, mental, emotional, feeling-based sensation in the body, one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging. And or obviously again feeling, but unconsciousness arising from that. That feeling comes from, where does it come from? Sometimes you're not even aware. How did I start to feel this in my body? Or where did this emotion come from? That's unconsciousness. All right. But all the purpose of that pain is to get through. It's like a doorway to get through the other side to consciousness, which is where you are more of yourself and you have unlearned what you learned that you thought was you. That's why it's painful, because you've spent so many years and decades thinking that that was you, that behavior, those thoughts, those emotions, and you are not any of those things. And that's why it's painful, because you've actually lived in that way and thought that that was true, and it's a lie. So let's go back to the third step, right? We said finding the fear, right? Step number 3 is finding the truth, because fear is a liar. False evidence appearing real. Great acronym. So what this means is that once we find the fear, we know that we will grow, heal, and transform truly, that we have, when we observe the fear and it's no longer logical, right? So I'm going to tell you this story about my dreams now over the last 3 nights. But first, what I want to do is help you understand how our levels of consciousness help us heal and transform truly and create the life we desire. Because we're the only ones that are sabotaging ourselves, abandoning ourselves out of these unconscious fears. So first in my life was physicality. I thought physically is my greatest form of growth, healing, and transformation. Physical health, strong, fast, as a kid, playing sport, competing. And then I began to learn about something called mindset. I picked up a book written by a guy named Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins. It was called Awaken the Giant Within. That was when I began to think, mindset. Mindset is the ultimate stage to growth, healing, and transformation. So I started learning about mindset, all right, about where your focus goes, your energy flows, all right. So I did that for a good part of 20 years. Then I learned about emotional intelligence and I realized, oh my God, most of my mindset is dictated by my emotions. This is the ultimate stage to growth, healing, and transformation. So I started learning about emotions and focusing on my emotions. What is the emotion that I'm feeling right now, right? But what happened there was I was describing emotions, but I wasn't feeling the feelings associated with those emotions that we label. So what happened was that I wasn't actually growing, healing, and transforming because I was intellectualizing. I was making my emotions and making my feelings mental when I thought, quote unquote, that I was feeling my feelings. And when I realized that I wasn't, and I began to feel the feelings, which are the sensations in my body, the same as I would notice that I feel full and satiated once I finished eating and ate a substantial meal, or I felt hungry, right? That same way, only these feelings were very, very uncomfortable. And what I'd realized was that throughout decades of my life, the mindset that I was focusing on, and then after that, long after that, the emotions that I was becoming aware of in an intellectual way were all protecting me from finally feeling very, very uncomfortable feelings in my body. They were, they kept my mind racing to keep me in my mind and thinking, trying to think my way through a feeling. Now, notice the arrows, right? So the physicality is the closest to where I think the change is. Then the mindset is, sorry, physicality is there. So my whole body, mindset, close to my mind, but it's only in my head. Now, emotions, cool. Emotions, how I label, I use a word to define what I might be experiencing in my body. Then feelings, I point the arrow right to the heart because feelings, essentially, there are no good or bad feelings. They're just feelings. And they're uncomfortable because we have not been, we learned that when we're a child, if we feel this feeling, we lose love. And that felt like death, like we were going to die when we were a child. And so that's how we carry this into adulthood. And so the best thing we can do is feel an uncomfortable feeling, really feel it. And that is all is needed. There's no thinking through it. There's no needing to analyze it or read a book. It's just to notice sensations in your body. But when you haven't learned this before, you haven't learned how to build your emotional map, which is what I teach people essentially, then that's a bit too unfamiliar to you. You don't know how to actually feel your feelings. There is an actual process for you to understand. So now look at the next arrow, unconsciousness. That arrow points to a circle that encapsulates and is bigger and more all-seeing than any of these other things, your physicality, your mindset, your emotions, your feelings. Because unconsciousness is what is dictating all of this anyway. Unconsciousness is where all resistance and all fear and all truth lives. Okay. So, how do we find unconsciousness practically? We write down what are the things I've been thinking that are congruent with who I truly am, right? And what are they telling me? What's the story they're telling me? What's the identity that believes those things about themselves? And also, what's the evidence within my life of the things I say I don't want, but they're there, which means that unconsciously, on some level, unconsciously, I wanted them because having is evidence of wanting. Let me say that again. Having is evidence of wanting. What does that mean? It means that if you truly wanted a different circumstance than the one you had, you would have learned how to change and respond to that circumstance. No matter what person, place, or thing that was, you would have gone and learned how to respond to it so you could get a different result based on what you are in control of, which is your perception, decisions, and actions. Okay? So now look at the arrow that points to the biggest circle that has the most influence on your physicality, your mindset, your emotions, your feelings, your own consciousness. It is consciousness. Consciousness, also known as God, universe. I think some people call it Maya, divine intelligence. I like to call it the gods, okay? The gods guide you. What that means is gods is great origins, divine, divine synchronicity. The great origins of divine synchronicity. The gods are the thing that guide you. What does this mean? Consider that every single moment is synchronicity for you. What synchronicity means that things are synchronizing. They're actually all connected. They're actually leading you to exactly where you need to be. What I'm suggesting to you is every moment is perfect. It is supposed to have happened that way because that is the way it had happened. Otherwise, it would have happened a different way. Okay. It's all leading you somewhere. Your job is to be curious about where it is leading you and gaining the insights for why this would be happening for you, not to you. Yes, that's a classic mental reframe, but it will support you in guiding you to understand how you unconsciously created your current situation so that you can become fully conscious, self-actualized, fully authentic, and therefore creating the exact life that you consciously say you want. And now your unconsciousness lines up with your consciousness. All right. So, how do we practically let go of the resistance, find the fear, and find the truth? Well, like I said before, the easiest way to do it is find out what's the thing you're saying you don't want right now that you have in relationship, career, work, purpose, work, your body, etc. And ask yourself, what would somebody who had this outcome right now, so say you've got weight on your body, right? So you've got extra body weight, and you say, oh, I want to lose it. Why would I possibly want it? Like, what is the fear of losing? What is the fear of actually getting what you want? What's the fear of losing the 20 kilos? I give you an example of someone I've worked with discovered that they had a fear of loving themselves, a fear of feeling consistent love because they learned when they were younger that love gets taken away. It's not consistent, and that love comes from an external person. So if I don't like the way I look, then I can't feel love, means, oh, I'll pack weight on so that I don't have to face that feeling because I don't know how to get it anywhere other than someone else external. And nobody is telling me that I look amazing or something like that. And so we get to the core unconsciousness in this example is the unconsciousness is I believe that love comes from outside of me rather than it's the love that I create myself and it emanates within me. All right. And what happens then is my client goes, oh, I love how I look right now. There's no improving to do in order to feel love for myself. I can just love how I look right now. And all of a sudden, the resistance disappears. And I find the truth. And the truth is that I am perfect and whole and complete the way I am and the way my body looks and feels right now. And then that is the very core of the foundations that we have then pulled away for all of the shame, guilt, overeating, over consuming of food, um, failing at diets. They've all been built off of this foundation of that deep seated fear that we've been living from unconsciously in this example of health. But this happens in business, etc., you name it. And now I want to give you an example of dreams. So now you can use this with feelings that you feel, dreams that you have, which can be from, mental state, but they're showing you the emotions and feelings present and the unconsciousness that's present. So you can do this through dreams. You can do this with how you perceive other people, especially if they evoke anger, sadness in you, all those sorts of things. It's just showing you where you can grow, heal, and transform. You don't need the other person there. So I had three dreams the last 3 nights. First dream was I was in a house and there was a person who was like looking at me like through doorways, through little small gaps of doorways. They were looking at me, but they were walking away from me. They were avoiding me, but looking at me awkwardly. And it was so odd. And I remember feeling terrified, right? I noticed the feeling of terrified, well, the emotion of terror being in this house. I didn't know why I was in this house. All right. So once I had that happen, I interpreted the dream and got some insights through, researching dream interpretations. And it showed that being in a house in a dream is representative of our personality or ourselves, right? And the person that I was following around was a dismissive part of me, but it was a protector of me. It was protecting me from the pain, feelings of the terror that I had felt when I was younger from when I had been dismissed by somebody else. All right. So I researched like mentally, firstly, like what does this kind of dream mean? And then I got insights into that. And then I related it to the emotions of terror that I noticed, that they were the ones that logically made sense. And then the feelings that were associated with that dream, which was fear or feeling in the gut. And so I started to gain insights, and I was like, okay, when would I have felt that feeling, and who would that person have been that elicited those emotions in me? And I had a memory of when I was a kid and when I was a baby, and I was crying and didn't get my needs met. I wasn't nurtured in that moment. And that seemed as though those were the where the terror emotions came from. That I would be abandoned, that I felt abandoned. The emotion of abandonment was present there. All right. And then the second night, I then had a dream about all the scary things that happened when I was a kid. I used to It the clown from the horror movie called It. I used to I used to be scared, feel terrified of that clown and other clowns whenever I'd see clowns on TV, on anything. But this time I didn't feel those feelings of terror anymore. I was able to observe them and sort of look beyond them, that they were just characters. That it was a character that was made in a movie. That the, scary speaking voice that was on the TV show I used to watch with like scary sounding music, um, was all just sounds. And so I no longer feel that terror. So through understanding this and bringing it from unconsciousness to consciousness, the feelings are dissipated and dissolved, all right? And the emotions of terror were no longer there. I was just able to neutrally observe. And it's so interesting how, I went from having this experience with a person in a dream that I was following around a house, that then what it did was it sort of like unpacked like a domino effect to the other things that used to scare me as a kid. It was like I'd pulled the thread, like pulled out the root of something, of a plant, and the rest had just been pulled out. And it's like the leftovers of it was the second night. And then the third night, what was left over was I found myself in the dream. I was in a restaurant, and the person was actually giving me a promotion in the restaurant and saying, "We want you to be front of house. We want you to welcome guests." And they said, because we appreciate what you do. And I remember viscerally in my body, in the dream, experiencing tears of joy because I felt so appreciated. And so what happened there was the resistance that I wasn't even aware of was that I'd neglected and abandoned a part of myself that felt dismissed, avoided, the feelings of avoidance, right? What they evoked in me, the emotions of terror from being avoided or abandoned. And then I found the fear of abandonment, right? And then I found the truth. As an adult now, can I be abandoned? No, I cannot be abandoned because now as an adult, I can take care of myself. I don't need to depend on another person. I found the truth, which resulted in the consciousness. And all of that, the scary stuff, was the great origins of divine synchronicity. Now, how can you use this in your relationship with your partner when you are projecting problems that you perceive in them? That is resistance for you. Okay? Your physicality in injuries, in tightness in muscles will show up the symptoms of your mindset, which is showing you the symptoms of the uh, unexpressed, suppressed, um, unconscious emotions that will then evoke the feelings and sensations in your body that you allow to process through being present and not intellectualizing or trying to rationalize, just sitting and feeling those and breathing into them and welcoming those sensations. That then you can come to consciousness. You can be more present. You can only be as present as you are conscious. So it's not just as simple as to be present. If you try to be present, unconsciousness will pull you out of the present moment in order to resolve feelings, emotions, mentality, physicality, and bring you to full consciousness. Okay. If you would like help with this, then reach out to me. Go to Darren John Bruce on Instagram, Darren Bruce on Facebook, darrenbruce.com.au. I have seen many people completely transform their life with this, thinking that there is this thing where they are so stuck. It's in their relationship, it's in their career, their business, it's in the communicating with anybody, staff, like I said, in business career, family members, friends, your partner. It is all not them. There is no outside problems and there is no inside problems. There's just perceived problems. And what they are actually your unconsciousness trying to bring you to consciousness. Your body, your mind, your spirit, it wants to naturally heal. And it's bring to your attention things that are not yet resolved with. So you don't need to solve problems, you dissolve problems. All right? Because problems don't exist. There are no problems. So if you want to grow, heal, and transform at a rapid pace so that you can have deeply fulfilling relationships, the intimacy that you desire, the double intimacy, like I've helped people experience, the fulfilling business, career, purpose work, the dream body, then message me on Instagram at Darren John Bruce. Go to my Facebook, Darren Bruce. Go to darrenbruce.com.au. Share this video with somebody who it could help. I hope this is useful to you. Bye.